Well, hello, welcome back. My name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, we're going to be looking at aggregation in SQL, and we're going to be looking at several different commands that you can use. Among them will be count, sum, min, max, average, etc. So let's see what we can learn here. Now, when you're doing aggregation, again, you're trying to summarize your data. You're trying to take several rows or several columns, whatever, and you're trying to shrink and reduce things down to a handful of numbers for descriptive purposes to try to get an idea of your shape of your data, how many rows, how many columns, the range of it, etc. So the first thing we're going to learn here is how to, of course, how to count your data. So I better be careful with how I do my commands here. So select count, and then we put asterisks inside here. So what's going to happen here is, excuse me, is that SQL is basically going to count all the rows of non-null data. So in other words, all the rows that have data inside it. If the particular row has missing values, for example, it'll be considered null and it will not be counted. So in the second row of data, excuse me, I'm just putting in the name of the table I'm getting my information from, and then I just press Control Enter, and you can see this number down here, nice and clear. Excuse me. And so we have 62,448 rows of data, if you will, in this particular table called game from the basketball.sqlite database that I found on Kaggle. So that's the first one. Now, another way that we can do this is that you can, of course, specify a specific column. So I'm going to do count, and I'm going to change the name here to draft. This is another table that I have. Dot name team. All right, now I have to change the name of the table to draft. Obviously, they must be consistent. And if I press enter, now you can see I got some different information, but now only for a specific column in this particular example. So next, we're going to learn about the sum command, and I think you can tell from the name what the sum command does. So let me just delete out what I don't need here. So I'm going to type in sum, and so the sum just tells you how much. So I want to figure out, okay, how much did they spend on total salary? Whoops, as total salary. This is the name I'm going to give it. So what this is going to do is that it's going to go inside this table called player salary. Let me put that here in my second line. And it's going to find out how much, it's going to add up all the values in that particular table and tell you the total amount of salary that was spent. So, and also one other thing is that if you can see, I put a little command here called as. I probably should capitalize this. Total salary. So I'm giving it a name. I'm naming the column when I put this as here. So press Control Enter, and you can see, let's see here, hundreds, thousands, millions, so $12 billion in there. Again, this is probably not quite right, but we're just practicing here in terms of actual reality. And so the sum command allows you to sum up all the values in a particular column from a table. So value is obviously the column, and player salary is the table that it came from. Now, after sum, we can also find the maximum and the minimum. But I'm going to do this a little bit different in that I'm going to show you the minimum and the maximum, and I'm going to use that information to find the range, or how spread out the data is. It's one way of measuring that. So let me give myself a little bit more space here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So I don't want the sum anymore. Instead, what I want the minimum of value, and I'm going to call this as, let me just capitalize that for good practice, low salary. Then I can do this again, and I can just pretty much just copy and paste, and I'll just change min to max. And of course I should capitalize this for good practice. And I'm going to change this from low salary to high salary. Now for the range, what we're going to do here is we're going to take the maximum. So I'm just going to copy this and then we're going to subtract the minimum. So copy and paste. And of course I have to get rid of these little alias tags here, so I don't need this as salary. And so you have to make sure you put the commas after each command here, and then we're going to call this as salary underscore range instead of range by itself. And then you can see down here we have all of our information. We have our low salary, $25,000. We have our high salary of 48 million. And then the difference between these are the range is basically 48,762,000. It's a huge range. So, you know, the lowest guy on the team is making almost nothing, and the best players are making so much. All right, now the last thing we're going to calculate here is we're going to calculate the average. And so we want to know what is the average salary of a basketball player. So select, and then we're going to put in AVG for average. This is another way to aggregate the data. Every single time, notice how we're getting one number, one number, one number. That is essentially, you know, one of the main purposes of aggregation. So value, and then I'm going to call this as average salary. Okay, I think that's about it. We press Control Enter. Whoops, gotta. And so removing the one blank space there just for, you know, clarity, you can see now we have select average value as average salary from player salary, and you can see down here the average salary is about $9.7 million for a player. And so that essentially wraps up what we're going to be doing in this video. So let's review and wrap this up. So in this video, we were exposed to some of the tools you can use for aggregation inside SQL. We talked about the count function, which basically counts the rows for you. We also discussed about summing, which of course sums up all the values. The min and the max function shows you the lowest value and the highest value. And then we use that knowledge of min and max to find the range. And we wrapped it up here by learning how to calculate the average of a particular column in a table. So remember that with aggregation, most of the time you are going to be returned one value, and that is the whole purpose of aggregation, to take many values or many numbers and to reduce them down to one number that kind of gives you the overall picture of the behavior of whatever column you might be looking at, or table if you will. So my name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Thank you for watching and take care.